OMG Teach Me Tribe, hello again. We are here today to talk about something that could be a little bit difficult to talk about, depending on who you are and what your experiences have been in life. And that's part of why I want to do this. We've had a number of episodes on this podcast where we've talked about healthy living related things, from gut health to types of food to emotion food connection to healthy cooking. And I'll tell you which episodes those are at the end of this one, because I think you could create for yourself sort of a little review once we talk about today's topic. And today's topic is body positivity and health. And the reason that I think this is a powerful podcast topic is that these two things often get sort of pitted against each other as if they are in contrast with each other, as if you can't be body positive and care about being healthy. Or if you care about being healthy, that's not body positive. And that's not what either of these terms mean. And so I want to help you see that. We're going to see if we can pull away the extremism about what these terms mean and make sense out of it. Okay? Hang in there with me. This is what we're going to do. All right. So, what in the world, you might be asking yourself, because maybe you've never really heard this term very much. Maybe you're not on social media as much. I don't know. What in the world is body positivity? Well, here's the basic definition. I went Googling all around to see what I could find. And basically, body positivity means all people deserve to have a positive body image, regardless of how society, pop culture, social media, magazines, TV view an ideal shape, size, or appearance. And if I just stop there with that definition, I think we would be hard pressed to find someone who disagrees with that. I mean, honestly, of course, every person deserves to have a positive body image. It doesn't matter the measurements or the whatever. Every person. And in fact, last week's episode was all about being kind to ourselves. So go and have a quick review of episode 38 if you have forgotten that concept already. Fully on board with the idea that everyone deserves to have a positive body image. And quite frankly, if you are around people, following people on social media, whatever it might be, who are making you feel any other way, don't be around them, stop following them. Because sometimes we sort of think that we need to tear people down in order to then build them back up and help them change. And again, if we learned anything from last week's episode, self-criticism or criticism in general is not the way that we keep motivation. So, understanding that that's the definition, let's talk a little bit more about what body positivity then includes. So, the idea, this actually is a term, believe it or not, I actually was surprised at this, but this is a term that's been around since the late 60s, early 70s. And it, pops up in a more popular way here and there. But when social media became a big thing, this became again a big thing. If you think about it, when I was growing up, I would see, people who are very thin or very fit or whatever on TV, and I would see them in magazines. And it was discussed at that time. We won't talk about when that was, but it was discussed at that time that maybe magazines were giving an unrealistic expectation for women's bodies. That issue has always been being discussed, but just imagine for a minute, think about it, how significantly more of a big deal that has become with social media. And I have two kids that are in their 20s, and thankfully, neither of them is really glued to social media all the time. I don't know how exactly that happened or why, but I think it's probably healthier. Now, I'm on social media a lot, and so I'm not trying to say social media is not healthy if you do it in a healthy way. I am saying that at impressionable ages, people are now exposed to a lot more of potentially negative body image type material. So it's kind of 10x'd what was happening when I was younger. So, in this way, this body positivity idea and the movement for body positivity is a really good thing. The goal is to challenge how society and pop culture views the body and to promote that all bodies of all shapes and sizes are accepted and help people build confidence, address the unrealistic standards. In fact, if you actually meet people who are in the modeling industry or acting, or they do tend to be very, very thin, and they work really hard to keep that up. And that's not something that all of us want to do. And it's not something all of us need to do or should do. But anyway, that's not the topic of today's podcast episode. So, I'm totally on board with this. I'm betting you're totally on board with this. We want to understand what media messages have to do with how we look at our bodies. And we don't want it to become a thing where people are constantly self critiquing, constantly thinking, my nose, my this, my that, always focusing on the negative. And interestingly, even though social media can be a source of images that we might compare ourselves to and they might make us feel bad, Instagram has played a pivotal role in this body positivity movement. And magazines are getting on board, different publications are getting on board. Some of them have stopped airbrushing models. Maybe you've seen the Dove ads. They're showing people of all different shapes and sizes. They're normalizing that everybody looks different. Everybody has a different shape and size. So there are some positive things happening because people are saying, well, wait a minute. Yeah, of course we should be able to feel good about ourselves. Why should anyone not be able to feel good about themselves? And then we go deeper. So always, always, we want to be kind to ourselves. Always we want to work on mindset to the extent that that negative voice in our brains, and you'll hear it called the monkey brain, you'll hear it called the subconscious brain. There's a million different ways we could call it. There is a negative voice in everyone's brain. If you have that in your brain, it is not something wrong with you. That negative voice is trying to keep us safe. And so it's going to tell us things that make us maybe pull back from challenges or risks. And while that's not ideal necessarily, in many cases, we understand where that's coming from. The problem is if the brain starts to perceive that a risk or a challenge is that I'm comparing myself to other people. You're comparing yourself to other people. And the brain starts to tell you how you're lacking in the actual appearance comparison to other people. Well, that is less of a safety issue and more of a now you're just tearing yourself down issue. And some of this can be solved by working on messages out in the media and making sure that the body positivity movement is being seen. And another piece of this comes from understanding how our brains work and how mindset works, and understanding that when we catch our brains going into that negative place and comparing us to someone else, there's no benefit to be gained from that. It's your brain trying to keep you safe from some perceived risk, which I have to imagine if I'm thinking, how would I try to figure this out in myself? The risk is maybe to look bad versus someone else, and probably it's to look bad in someone else's opinion versus someone else. That's probably where that risk is sitting. And this is something that we can learn how to switch our mindset about.